Welcome back to the Reimagining Civil Justice podcast. Today we take a deeper dive into British Columbia's Civil Resolution Tribunal, and we explore a rather simple question. When we move justice online, are we expanding access to justice or diluting its purpose and intent? British Columbia's Civil Resolution Tribunal, or CRT, is Canada's first end-to-end online administrative tribunal. It establishes an independent and neutral tribunal for resolving civil disputes affordably and accessibly. As a service, it intends to improve and remove the needs for lawyers and court appearances and opt for a collaborative approach with users throughout. At first glance, it's a textbook access to justice reform, with lower fees, plain language, online tools, and relatively fast decision-making. But once you assess more critically and examine who uses it, how it works, and what gets left out, the picture becomes more complicated. The CRT operates under the Civil Resolution Tribunal Act and deals with many issues that would otherwise be relevant to a provincial or Supreme Court. It has jurisdiction over small claims up to $5,000, motor vehicle accidents and injury disputes, strata property disputes, intimate image sharing, and societies and cooperative disputes within BC. Furthermore, users may access the Solution Explorer to find answers for each type of claim that the CRT addresses and get more curated answers and relevant legal information. After having used the Solution Explorer, individuals may make or respond to a claim. The CRT then requires that all disputes pass through a negotiation to come to an agreement, and if unsuccessful, a facilitation phase, where a CRT case manager tries to help reach an agreement. In the case that no resolution is being found, an independent tribunal member makes a decision about the claim, and these decisions are enforced like court orders. So in design terms, the CRT looks like a serious and evidence-driven attempt to expand access to justice. But the true question is this access meaningful, or are we just creating a two-tier system? Let's get into it a little bit deeper. Now, addressing the question of whether or not this translates into meaningful access requires us to define what meaningful access truly is. If we define access to justice as affordable, understandable, and timely resolution of everyday disputes, the CRT ranks high on the scale. Its entirely online, asynchronous, 24/7 structure allows flexibility, and the faster outcomes allow individuals to dedicate less of their valuable time to often tedious legal matters. Also, its cost effectiveness eases some of the burden that legal issues often present with. Furthermore, the process is simple and easy to follow, and the step-by-step guidance coupled with the plain language rather than the typical heavy legal jargon makes it easier to follow than navigating traditional methods. There's also evidence in favor of the CRT resulting in meaningful access, by it resulting in addressing higher volumes of underserved disputes from the past and scoring positively in terms of user fairness and usability. Upon assessment, we see that when compared to traditional civil courts, CRT is cheaper than hiring a lawyer to run a small claim through the system. It also reduces both physical and time barriers, along with providing a lot of flexibility for when and where claims can be filed. Also, it offers the opportunity to collaborate and engage in the various stages in the process towards legal resolution. Ultimately, these are important considerations. Traditional courts are notorious for backlogs, complex forms and processes, and high legal fees. By contrast, the CRT's timeline, even with its lower satisfactory scores, provide a quicker resolution than traditional courts. And its relatively high satisfaction scores, especially in terms of usability, suggest that many users are actually getting a usable, humane, and easily accessible service. And in that sense, for low-value disputes that would otherwise be abandoned or settled informally on unfair terms, the CRT creates a real access that was not as readily as available before. That said, there are still some systemic risks to this approach. One such risk is digital exclusion. Having an online-only tribunal risks limiting access for those who may not be able to use online services. This design excludes individuals who may not have access to internet or to knowledge and skills needed to utilize the service, in which case no amount of plain language would be helpful. Unfortunately, these are also often the demographics that need such a service, meaning that often those who may need low-cost justice most often are the least likely or least able to access it through such digital platforms, and this risks exclusion and inhibits meaningful access. There are also procedural limitations in that the CRT is limited in the remedies it can award, and evidence, for example, does not undergo rigorous cross-examination as it would in traditional court, so there are not as many protections afforded to clients or safeguards to ensure proper and complete evaluation of all materials. Further, this risks a power imbalance as no lawyers are meant to be involved in the process in most cases, so equity across the users cannot necessarily be accounted for in the same way. Some users may be better at using the resources and maximizing their benefits than others, and in other cases, users may have better knowledge of the law in general, which would result in giving them more likelihood to be successful and have successful outcomes due to their experience and knowledge. All of these concerns feed into the main point of contention, which is the potential creation of a two-tier system. The CRT primarily handles everyday or low-value claims and disputes, while more complex ones or high-value cases remain in traditional courts. This inherent distinction itself, that results from having services such as CRT for small claims, gives rise to the two-tier system critique. In this case, Tier 1 would be for small dollar disputes, where you get more streamlined approaches, you're on a digital platform, it's a highly managed process, and there's lots of emphasis on settlement and limited oral advocacy. On the other hand, Tier 2 is reserved for higher value or legally complex disputes, where you keep the full suite of traditional court proceedings, with full procedural protections, live hearings, robust discovery and questioning, and notably legal representation. Now, an important consideration is that the CRT excluded lawyers in an attempt to reduce costs, but this in and of itself could result in people getting access to resolution, but not access to justice. And for many, resolution is enough, but in complex matters with more important consequences, justice can have more of a value. And just because it's a small claim does not mean that it's not a more complex matter or one that has or may have an important consequence. Now to answer the core question, is the CRT an innovation or a new inequality? My position is deliberately two-part. First, I do believe the CRT is genuinely innovative and provides access to justice. There is data to support this, and similar platforms on international levels also show that there are positive outcomes of such an approach. CRT data on volume of cases, its timelines, and overall user satisfaction shows that it is resolving disputes that might otherwise never reach a meaningful legal forum. And it's doing so faster, more affordably, and in more user-friendly ways than traditional courts tend to. That said, the CRT and similar platforms and services are not a complete solution, and they do in fact risk entrenching inequality if no reform is provided. If low-value claims are permanently relegated to streamlined, online-only tribunals and processes, we risk normalizing lesser justice for those who may need justice the most. That's why I believe the CRT is best understood as a platform for systemic reform, not necessarily as a complete substitute for it. Its design shows what is possible when the right steps are taken and when we take usability, cost, and data, as well as the client needs seriously. But to avoid a two-tier system, those same principles need to be pushed back into the rest of the civil justice system, and reforms need to be made. Ultimately, if we continue to expand online justice without simultaneously strengthening offline supports, representation, and community-level outreach, we risk putting structurally disadvantaged people into a system they cannot fully navigate. And these are the same people who probably need the system most. Thank you all for following along on that journey. That was Civil Justice Reimagined.